All right, so we are officially on episode one of Truth Talks, which is our new podcast series going over different client success stories. And today we have Scott with us. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. This is very exciting. So you've done pretty well in your journey. So, but even before starting the journey with us, I want to go a little bit of a backstory with you. So maybe if you can talk a bit about your athletic history, kind of growing up, and then where you were kind of going into starting with us.
For sure, yeah. So I think growing up, I played a lot of sports. Always was playing hockey, baseball, rugby, like different sports. So I was at least decently athletic, but I didn't have too much of an in-depth knowledge of fitness and what really goes into nutrition and that side of things. And then immediately before starting with training with you with Truth Body Systems, I actually did like a bulking phase where I put on some muscle, and then I was actually looking to kind of shred down. And so that's where
Nice.
we teamed up, and yeah, it's been great so far. And yeah, like you said, super happy with the results.
Awesome, man. That's fantastic. That's really good. And so you kind of just finished a bulking phase. And what was your mindset at that point? Like, what was your expectation of what would be needed to kind of shred down, I guess? What was your expectation?
I think going into it, I didn't have a lot of like preset expectations. I just knew that I wanted to get into the best shape of my life, and I knew that in order to do that, I would need the help of someone that actually had studied this nutrition and knew the science behind it, and could really hold my hand through the whole process. And so that's kind of my mindset was going into it. And yeah, I think it really worked out well because I was in like a good mindset where I was sort of ready to make this big change, and was also in a new environment. I just moved into a new apartment, moved downtown, so I was kind of ready to take this new step and commit to like more of a lifestyle change.
Awesome, man. And I love the way you phrase that at the end there, like lifestyle change, right? Because I think a lot of people they see a result and they want the result, but they are not willing to accept the process. They don't want the process. They just want the result, right? And that's kind of
Hmm.
like, you know, we're in this kind of for the process, and the stuff that you learn throughout the process is kind of like falling in love with the game or falling in love with the chase kind of thing, right? So I'm
Hmm.
glad you touched on that. And like, we're about sustainability and learning, not necessarily about like quick fixes, right? So I like that you kind of had that factor there, which is awesome. And I think that what would you I mean, you were successful in this process, so what was some key things that you think, or key attributes that you've had throughout, we I guess we did a cut for around 4 months. What were some key attributes that you withheld that allowed you to be successful in your mind?
I mean, there's definitely a multitude of different things that helped just being successful. One was, I think, like identifying upfront, like you said, that it is a lifestyle change. You can't expect to sort of just go about your normal routine and then just work out a little bit more and expect great results. So I think identifying first, like what we wanted to accomplish, and then setting out a plan in place, and that was really huge, and really sticking to it consistently. So week by week, I think in that 4 month span, we went through 3 or 4 different mesocycles where we were switching up the exercises, but sticking with them for like a 6 week period, and then moving to the next one. So that was kind of something that was really helpful because I feel like I also like learned a lot about like the different like form and like what how to actually do the exercise in like the correct way. And yeah, I think another thing was I'm already touched on like the environment, being in a new like moving into a new apartment, and then kind of being in like a place that was conducive for success. So I also was lucky to have roommates who were super supportive and were also kind of alongside me on like a fitness journey, wanting to get like more healthy. And so we go to the gym together, and that really helps being in just the right mindset and with having great supportive people around you. So that's another thing that is huge for success. And I think overall just being realistic with like, I knew that coming in, I I did have like that athletic background, so I wanted to really push myself and see what I was capable of, but also staying within yourself and being realistic with like, okay, I knew that, what we're actually able to realistically achieve through this time frame.
Awesome, man. Really good point. So kind of like the environment and support system, being realistic with yourself, and then also knowing yourself and kind of being true to who you are too, which is awesome. No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And I think some people overlook the environment aspect as well. And I've made posts about this before, but it's like if your environment is constantly kind of bashing against you and causing resistance, it's just going to make things like 20% harder for you to get to where you want to be, right?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
awesome, man.
there's no like, real growth without giving stuff up to like, without sacrifice. Doesn't mean you have to sacrifice like all of your like fun stuff you do. Like I
Mhm.
still was able to, we that was probably the one of the biggest things was having like that flexibility of, having a coach that understands like the trade-offs and everything, but you're able to fit it in. So I, still went to the cottage a couple times, still hung out with friends. It was just that little bit like, not taking it too far and getting off track the plan. We always reeled it
Right.
back in, right?
Sure.
And stayed on track. So.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think the key thing is like we do take, for people that don't know, we do take a relatively flexible approach and with dieting and macronutrient based approach. But we do have strategies for, like, we're very quantitative, but we do have strategies for things like nights out, or if you want to go out with your buddies and have a few drinks, or when you're away and you can't measure your food and stuff like that. Like, I think that's what makes things sustainable, and also that's what teaches you those strategies that you can use them for the rest of your life, right? My hope is that now you have such good awareness of how things work, so that it's not very stressful for you when you're like, okay, I put myself in this box for 4 months, but now I don't know how to live my normal life and stay on track, right? It's like, okay, I was on track, but I know the strategies to handle social occasions, handle a few drinks with my buddies, and different things like that, right?
Mhm.
So really
Absolutely,
important, man.
yeah.
Really important. And I guess from shifting to a little bit from a work perspective, because you had a pretty busy, I would say, work schedule throughout this as well, which is good because it
Mhm.
keeps you busy, but also not good because it's an added layer of stress. So how did you manage, a focus on your career at the same time as managing the process?
Mhm. Yeah, it was definitely a bit of a balancing act. So I work in sales and partnerships at a large video game media company, Enthusiast Gaming. So with that, I, you know, uh, do sometimes actually like end up working late nights, and it was definitely a constant like balancing act. I tended to get my workouts done in the morning, and that just worked for me. It actually, I would actually say it helped me in my like professional life as well, because just the organization and the time management skills were like so valuable, kind of
It's
getting that
awesome.
that
I
all
love
all
that.
sorted. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was almost like once I started this, I knew I needed to fit in my workouts on that day. So I was planning out the rest of my day and the work I was going to do beforehand. And so I feel like it really taught me a lot in that sense, from a professional, um, perspective, as well as the like more personal, like nutritional side of it and everything.
Awesome, man. Yeah, good point. Good point. And I find the same way, is like when I'm really into like a fat loss phase, for example, everything else in my life kind of gets organized a lot better. Like
Mhm.
things are much more productive, I'd say. And I've heard that from a lot of people. It's like when you have a few of your ducks in a row, the rest of the ducks kind of line up in a row. And that saying, like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're super organized with your stuff outside of work, most likely you're the
Mhm.
type of person that's super organized with your stuff in work too, right?
Yeah,
So
it's so true. Yeah. It's just those skills are applicable to any part of your life. Being able to balance priorities and manage your time, and that's something that was really eye opening. And it's yeah, I feel like I've definitely progressed a lot on that side, as well as on the fitness side. So.
amazing, man, amazing. No, really glad to hear it. And I guess transitioning from kind of work to life, back to life. I know you have a girlfriend and stuff. So how did this process influence like your relationship, or how did you manage both, or what was the mindset, or did you have a certain conversation being like, listen, this is what I'm doing? Did you explain it, or was she supportive, or like
Mhm.
kind of give us the context around that?
Yeah, it's definitely super supportive. Yeah, I was lucky. Have like yeah, like I said, a good support environment and people around me that wanted me to succeed and to do well with this. So yeah, I think yeah, we obviously had that conversation, and then yeah, I think throughout the whole process, it was kind of just, we it didn't mean that we didn't still go out and have date night or go and do fun things. It was
Mhm.
just, in doing that, you might just order the food you order might be a little bit different, or might decide not to drink that night, or whatever it is. But it's these little trade-offs, but really in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big a deal. So she was cool with it,
Okay,
and
that's good,
super
man.
supportive. So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. No, that's really good. And she must like the results, more chiseled
Yeah.
jawline, nice muscles.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But yeah,
It's
no, that's
about it.
awesome. And that's awesome. So it sounded like you had a really good balance between like work, life, and then like balancing the fitness stuff on top of that, and relationships and everything. So I'm really happy to hear that, because that's something that we really want to make clear, that we try to obviously, as you said, you have to sacrifice something or other to make big changes in your life, but we want to
Mhm,
find a way where we can still incorporate things as long as we have a strategy to do so, right? So I'm I'm
mhm.
I'm really happy to hear that. And an interesting question that I want to ask you is, would you say the process of getting lean? So we dropped around 20 pounds, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and were you expecting it to be less or more difficult? And you can be honest. Do you expect it to be more difficult or less difficult?
Mhm. Honestly, probably I would have expected to be more difficult. And I think that's just because it's it does sound like a lot, like dropping 20 pounds, but over the course of, it was gradual. Like, it was a very consistent process over the course of 4 months. So really, on a week by week basis, we weren't dropping more than like a pound at most. And so it really felt very natural. And it was just in like the accumulation of like very little changes that all added up to this big change. But it's not like it felt like we were, at no point in the process was I like starving. I was like super hungry and like, wanted more food or whatever. And like was wishing, oh, Paris gave me more macros or whatever. Like, no, like I was on board with it. I was kind of like, yeah, like I'm trusting this process, and I really wasn't feeling like I was waking up hungry or anything. And maybe part of that is because, I was historically like just had a bit of a leaner frame, and was more comfortable at a bit of a lower weight. Um, but yeah, in any case, like I think it worked out really well, and yeah, I didn't feel like I was like really, like
Deprived.
I was, yeah, no, not at all. I felt like it was just natural, and it made sense, like the natural progression of how we adjusted the calories and macros throughout the process.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good, man. And yeah, everybody's obviously going to be a little bit different, right? Some people, and it goes back to this argument of kind of like where your body fat settling point is, we'll say. Some people do
Mhm.
have a larger propensity, usually because of appetite regulation, to be higher body fat percentage, and some people do have a natural propensity, usually again based on appetite and movement regulation, to be a lower body fat percentage. But regardless, if you're still going to drop 20 pounds, you still got to do it methodically, or else, everybody's usually hungry if you overly restrict calories, like, so,
Yeah.
and at the same time is like, okay, how can we still maintain performance as best as possible? And then in that case, if we're maintaining performance, most likely we're retaining more muscle mass as well, right? So that was a
Mhm.
key thing. I think for you, we actually saw some even muscle mass gains in like maybe delts and
Mhm.
triceps. Obviously, you're not going to add slabs of
Yeah.
muscle in the fat loss phase, but would you agree that maybe certain
Yeah.
muscle groups kind of took off?
I think definitely, yeah. The big thing that I saw was, like you said, yeah, delts, traps. I think it goes back to like the exercise. I now know that I was doing the exercise the proper way. Like, with like, um, dealt like flies or shrugs or that kind of thing. So I think having the tips on form and whatever went a long way. But those are obviously those are like ISO groups. I definitely saw big gains in those. The only one that, in dropping 20 pounds, it's pretty tough to like maintain your lifts in
Squat
like
and bench. Yeah.
squat and bench. Obviously, yeah, those took a bit of a hit, but overall, like my relative strength that we talked about, I think actually
Mhm.
increased because I'm now 20 pounds lighter, but I was lifting around the same weight, maybe a little bit less in the compounds and more on the ISO exercises. So overall, my relative strength, we could see what had definitely improved.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. And just for anybody that doesn't know, relative strength is essentially how much weight you can lift compared to your body weight. So if somebody's 200 pounds but can lift, 300 pounds, and somebody who's 150 pounds can also lift 300 pounds, the person that's lighter obviously is relatively speaking more stronger, or sorry, more stronger, is relatively stronger than
Yeah.
the person that's heavier just because they're a lighter body weight, right? So that is very cool, man. Very cool. And I 100% agree. Usually I find in fat loss phases, squats and presses are the first to go, just because
Mhm.
leverages change. And when you're on less food, those are just movements that tend to go. But isolation movements, as you were saying, you can kind of keep up with them as you go, which is awesome. That's cool, man. That's super cool. And if you were to kind of take a look back on the process and what you achieved, if somebody was wanting to, let's say, achieve something similar, like, okay, let's drop around 20 pounds, get lean, get more defined abs and good shoulders and everything like that. What would you say from them in terms of like a mindset perspective? What kind of mindset should they employ when kind of starting the process?
Hmm. I think definitely, like, it goes back to what we were saying kind of at the beginning, like having a growth mindset,
Mhm.
and wanting to um, push yourself and kind of like see, it was, for me, it was all about like seeing what I was capable of with the correct like coaching and nutrition and everything. So I think just being realistic with yourself, maybe having that conversation with internally, and saying like, okay, I'm committing to this. It's a long-term process. It's not going to be an overnight change, but I'm committing to doing it the proper way with the right guidance and everything. And if you need help in doing that, then go and ask for it, right?
Mhm.
Don't
Mhm.
try and do it all yourself, and then fizzle out after 2 weeks, right?
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
don't go to the gym 7 days a week, be in there lifting, and then you get fatigued and you burn out quickly. Commit to doing it the proper way with the right coaching, and put a plan in place, and be realistic with what you want to achieve too. Like, if I guess it goes back to like stay within yourself, and know your own body and your own strengths, and understand like what's realistic, but also shoot high, you push yourself in this process, but um, definitely like stay within your own abilities as well.
Good, man. Very good insights. Very good insights. And something I'll add to that is like, because you had finished the phase where you did, put on some muscle mass, that's when you can kind of cash out, right? It's kind of like you were set up for, obviously we need the right plan and you need to actually execute, but you're sitting on a gold mine when you kind of have a decent amount of muscle mass. And all we know, we just got to be methodical and take off a certain amount of fat while keeping the muscle, and you're going to have a good look, right? So it's kind of like understanding each phase and how they tag along in sequence, right? It's not
Hmm.
just the 4 months that we did that completely built your physique, right? It's everything else you did, and then the position that we started on with having a decent amount of muscle mass that we could then cut down to, right? And that's,
Hmm.
I think, really important. It's something that people underestimate. And getting lean kind of makes you, it's very humbling because you actually see how much muscle you have, right?
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people
True.
overestimate how much muscle they really have just because they're holding a little bit more body fat. But I mean, you didn't start way overweight, but some people that are starting a bit heavier than you, I think they overestimate how much muscle they actually have. So when you cut down, you're like, oh, that's it, So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely,
Yeah, it's
man,
so true.
definitely. And I guess diving a little bit more into the specifics of what we did. So obviously we set some specific macronutrient goals and everything like that. But in terms of training, we followed like a 4-day split for anybody that doesn't know. And then I guess we didn't really use that much cardio. I think the most you were doing was maybe, well, we tracked steps and then the incline sessions,
Hmm.
right? Maybe walk us through
Yeah.
kind of how you organize your training week and the cardio and stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, so yeah, you're right. Minimal cardio, actually. And I know people that aren't fans of cardio will love to hear that, because it was basically, we continued with mainly like a strength training regime, 4 days a week, and I think we went through a couple of splits, but the main one, we had like a upper lower push pull, 4 day split, so hitting every muscle group in there. But then towards the end, we also added in 10 to 15 minutes following each workout of high incline walking, and that's it's much easier and more manageable than running or other cardio exercises, but it's burns a ton of calories in the process, and yeah, I found it to be super manageable, and yeah, I was a fan of the like the structure of it all. It was manageable with my like my workload, um,
Mhm.
and then as well as like having time for personal life.
Gotcha. Absolutely, man. And for most of the clients that work with us, they'll know that I'm a big advocate of steps. And I tend to sprinkle in cardio as needed. But I think that people underestimate the power of keeping your daily activity high just through steps and like just subconscious
Mhm.
movement, right? I think it's very undervalued. And even myself during my whole competition prep, I didn't do a single lick of cardio at all.
Mhm.
And I think I just tracked steps the whole time. I think the highest my steps got was like 10 to 12K. And that's it. So I think, people that don't like cardio, this is good news. You don't have to, you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's just the most important thing is, as we always say, is like calorie deficit, sufficient protein intake, right? Training hard,
Mhm.
sleeping well, and just doing the damn thing over and over and over again. Make sure you're not losing too fast, and kind of everything kind of falls into place after a while, right? That's
Mhm.
awesome, man. Really cool stuff. So, kind of a question. I won't take too much more of your time here, but kind of moving forward, I want to know, what is your vision for yourself in the next, let's say, even 2, 3 years, like both professionally, personally, and then for your fitness. So maybe, I guess,
Mhm.
we'll start with fitness first because it's most contextual.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think not a whole lot's going to change, to be honest, in the day to day, and I'm going to keep with I don't think I'm going to be like quite as tight with my calorie tracking and everything, but in general, after doing it for 4 months, I'm pretty good at like estimating the calories and macros for the day. So just making
Mhm.
sure I obviously get enough protein. I'm going to keep up with the 4 day split and working out and everything. So not a whole lot's going to really change there. I still want to keep, but I'm not going to continue to lose weight. I want to sort of maintain and just maybe build out the frame a little bit more. So maybe a little bit higher on the carbs. We talked about that,
Mhm.
compared to when we were cutting,
Yeah.
obviously. And then yeah, just I think same goes for like in more generally just in professional life or life in general. Like one of the big takeaways again from this was taking it one day at a time, and kind of like you alluded to earlier, like falling in love with the journey, not the destination.
Mhm.
So just taking it sort of one day at a time, and really like winning the day, and then
Nice.
over a extended period of time, those days add up to a big meaningful change in your life. But on a day-to-day basis, you're not really it doesn't look like you're making a huge change, but you're just, like you said, you're doing the same thing
Yeah.
consistently, and it's that
It's cool.
accumulation is
Winning the
is
day.
super
I like that.
powerful.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, man. Yeah, the accumulation. It's kind of like compound interest, man. Like,
Yeah.
kind of like
It,
compound interest.
totally.
It's
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's very
Yeah,
cool.
it's small changes added up over time. It's like it becomes this really powerful thing. So yeah, I'm gonna continue to apply that moving forward, for the long term, and we'll see where that takes me in a couple of years. But you can, I guess, have confidence in just trusting the process, and knowing that doing the thing, you know, um, day in day out, doing the thing that is right is kind of, it's going to get you there eventually.
Amazing, man. Amazing. So much valuable insights. I think the audience will appreciate this a lot. And I guess my last parting thing is there any other, advice or tips or insights that you think you would give to anybody kind of working on self-development or working on getting in shape or just trying to like make some positive changes or maybe feels like they're a bit stuck right now and things and wants to level up?
Mm. No, I mean, I think I think we pretty much we touched on it already. Like, if you're if you're wanting to like make a change, I think just being honest with yourself, being upfront about like what are my goals, both like short term, medium term, like longer term. What do I want to accomplish? And then realizing that it doesn't happen overnight, right? Like you got to put the right plan in place, and then you got to be consistent and do it. Like were just saying, you gotta do it day in day out, and just show up. And it's okay if you have like one bad day. It's okay to get off track for one day, but on a consistent basis, if you just keep doing it, you will see progress. So
Nice. Love it, man. Love it. Thank you so much for sharing this with everybody. And yeah, it
of
obviously has
course,
been an awesome journey. And what we're gonna do is, maybe put up some progress pics either here or in link below. You're gonna see some before and afters, which I guess by the time this is up, they'll already be on Instagram. But so you can see and put some visuals to the audio that we're chatting about. But you can see kind of all the moving parts that go into transformation. It's not just like working out and nutrition. There's a lot of other things that you have to think about and how to balance it and make it fit within your life. So again, thanks so much, Scott. And yeah,
thank you.
hope everybody got some value from this.